You and I have spoken about this, away from the lights and whatever. But I do want to tell you here, like, I'm one of those folks who's kind of
Hollywood's biggest stars just walked away from $15 million a year? What if I told you
that you're not going to be in Yellowstone anymore?
Yeah,
Kevin.
I loved making that thing. And when it came to me, it was
that Kevin Costner had a secret weapon in his contract that the studio never wanted him to have. And when he
wasn't on the radar of anyone, I recognized what I thought was great writing, what it could be. And I
finally used it, everything exploded. The real story behind Kevin Costner leaving
believed so much in it that I wanted to take people on that ride, and I went over and sold it overseas. And I think,
Yellowstone isn't what you think. It's bigger, messier, and more personal than anyone.
A belief, stood behind Taylor's good writing. And so I think I tried to prop it up that way and did.
Imagined. You see, when Costner posted that simple Instagram video saying he was...
One season turned into 5, and then I wanted to work obviously more than once a year, and I
was done with Yellowstone forever. He wasn't just quitting a TV show. He was ending a war.
I kept Yellowstone in first position, but it needed to stay on course.
A war that had been brewing behind the scenes for years. A war that involved broken promises, massive egos, and one man's refusal to let anyone control his destiny. Today, we're going to uncover the real truth about why Kevin Costner will never, ever return to the Dutton Ranch. But first, let me tell you something about Kevin Costner that might surprise you. This isn't a guy who gives up easily. This is the same man who bet everything he had on a 3-hour Western about Native Americans when everyone in Hollywood told him he was crazy. This is the guy who put his own money on the line, mortgaged his house, and proved them all wrong when Dances with Wolves won 7 Academy Awards. Kevin Michael Costner was born in 1955 in California, and his childhood was anything but stable. His dad worked for an electric company, and every time he got promoted, the family had to pack up and move somewhere new. Kevin went to school in Linwood, then Compton, then Ventura, then Visalia, and finally Orange County. Imagine being the new kid at school over and over again. He said it made him lose confidence because he always had to start fresh and make new friends. But you know what? All that moving around taught him something valuable. He learned how to watch people, how to understand them, how to read a room. Those skills would later make him one of Hollywood's most compelling actors. Even though he struggled in school and teachers called him a poor student, Kevin had this creative side that nobody really knew about. He played sports, took piano lessons, wrote poetry, and even sang in his church choir. When he was 18, he built his own canoe and paddled down the same rivers that Lewis and Clark had traveled centuries before. That adventure showed everyone that Kevin had this deep love for American history and the frontier spirit that would later define so many of his movies. In college, Kevin studied business and seemed like he was heading for a normal corporate life. He married his college girlfriend Cindy, and everything looked pretty traditional. But here's the secret nobody knew. During his last year at college, Kevin was secretly taking acting classes 5 nights a week. He didn't even tell his wife about it. He auditioned for plays and kept dreaming about Hollywood while pretending he wanted to be a businessman. After graduation, Kevin tried the corporate world for exactly 1 month. That's it. 1 month, and he realized he couldn't stand it. The job kept him away from auditions and acting classes, so he quit and took a job at a movie studio instead. Not as an actor, but as a stage manager. At least he could be close to the action while he figured things out. Those early years were tough. Kevin worked as a truck driver, a carpenter, even a tour guide showing people around Hollywood. But his wife Cindy believed in him, and slowly, he started getting small acting jobs. His first movie was this embarrassing low-budget film called Sizzle Beach USA that he later tried to buy just so nobody would ever see it again. Everything changed in 1985 when Kevin starred in a Western called Silverado. The director had promised him a good role after cutting most of his scenes from another movie. And boy, did he deliver. Kevin played this wild, unpredictable gunfighter who stole every scene he was in. Even though the movie wasn't a huge hit, everyone in Hollywood suddenly knew who Kevin Costner was. 2 years later, Kevin got his real big break, but it almost didn't happen. The lead role in The Untouchables was supposed to go to Don Johnson from Miami Vice, but Johnson turned it down. The director wasn't sure about Kevin either, but Steven Spielberg convinced him to take a chance. That chance turned into a $100 million hit and launched Kevin into superstardom. But Kevin wasn't content just being an actor. By 1990, at the height of his fame, he started his own production company. He wanted control over the stories he told, and his first project was the most ambitious thing anyone had ever attempted. Dances with Wolves was going to be a 3-hour Western with long stretches of Native American dialogue that most studios thought nobody would ever sit through. Kevin put $3 million of his own money into the film when the budget started running short. People in Hollywood mocked him and called the project Kevin's Gate, comparing it to one of the biggest disasters in movie history. But Kevin believed in the story, and when Dances with Wolves won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director, he became only the 3rd person in Oscar history to win Best Director on their first try. The success was incredible, but it came with a price. Kevin became known for being a perfectionist who insisted on controlling every aspect of his films. He refused to let anyone make changes behind his back, and while his attention to detail could be exhausting for everyone around him, his track record made people willing to put up with it. Then came the disasters. In 1994, Kevin's 16-year marriage to Cindy ended in one of the most expensive divorces in Hollywood history. $80 million. That same year, he starred in and produced Waterworld, which became infamous as one of the most expensive movies ever made. The budget ballooned to $175 million, and even though it made money worldwide, everyone called it a failure. Kevin admitted that 1994 was the hardest year of his life. He was dealing with a painful divorce, seeing his kids only half as often, and watching his reputation crumble under the weight of Waterworld's bad publicity. But the worst was yet to come. In 1997, Kevin directed, produced, and starred in The Postman, putting much of his own money into the $80 million budget. He was convinced it would be his comeback, but instead, it was a complete disaster. The movie made only $20 million worldwide and got destroyed by critics. At the Razzie Awards, it won every single category it was nominated for, including Worst Picture, Worst Actor, and Worst Director. Overnight, Kevin Costner went from being Hollywood's most bankable star to being a punchline. But here's what I love about Kevin Costner. The man doesn't know how to quit. Even after The Postman humiliated him, he kept working. He took smaller roles, rebuilt his reputation one movie at a time, and proved that he was still a serious actor worth watching. Then something amazing happened. In 2012, Kevin starred in a History Channel miniseries called Hatfields and McCoys, and it became a massive hit. 14 million people watched the finale, and Kevin won an Emmy Award for his performance. At an age when most actors are thinking about retirement, Kevin was proving that he could dominate television just as easily as he had dominated movies. That success led directly to Yellowstone. The show's creator, Taylor Sheridan, had pitched it to HBO first, but they passed on it. It ended up at Paramount Network, a channel that was desperate for its first major hit. Nobody could have predicted what happened next. Yellowstone didn't just become popular. It became a cultural phenomenon. The show about a Montana ranching family fighting to keep their land drew bigger audiences than most network shows. Kevin played John Dutton, the tough patriarch who would do anything to protect his family's legacy. At 63 years old, Kevin found himself at the center of the most popular show on television. The success was incredible, but behind the scenes, trouble was brewing. Kevin was also working on his passion project, a 4-part Western epic called Horizon, an American saga. He had been dreaming about this story for years, and he was willing to risk everything to make it happen. And I mean everything. Kevin didn't just invest $20 million like some people reported. He mortgaged his $50 million Santa Barbara mansion and put $38 million of his own money into the project. When Disney backed out, he spent years searching for other partners, telling investors that he had put everything he owned into making these movies. At the same time, his personal life was falling apart again. After 18 years of marriage, his wife Christine filed for divorce in 2023. The battle that followed was ugly and expensive, with fights over child support, property, and household items making headlines for months. Christine wanted almost $250,000 a month in child support, and the whole mess put enormous financial pressure on Kevin right when he needed to focus on his career. The scheduling conflicts between Yellowstone and Horizon started causing problems. Kevin needed time to finish his Western epic. The feud became so toxic that Paramount decided to end Yellowstone with Season 5 instead of continuing it for more years like they had originally planned. The relationship between Kevin and Taylor Sheridan was completely broken, and there was no way to fix it. When Horizon Chapter 1 finally hit theaters in 2024, the results were devastating for Kevin. Despite all his effort and risk, the movie made only $29 million worldwide against its $100 million budget. The second weekend drop was terrible, and it struggled everywhere. Warner Brothers even postponed the release of Chapter 2, even though it was already finished. Kevin admitted that the project needed to be a huge success just to survive financially, but audiences didn't connect with his 3-hour Western the way he hoped they would. Critics said it felt out of touch with modern movie tastes, and Kevin was facing one of the biggest personal financial losses in Hollywood history. That's when Kevin made the decision that shocked everyone. On June 21, 2024, he posted a simple Instagram video telling fans he would never return to Yellowstone. Just 6 words: "I won't be returning. I'll see you at the movies." Just like that, he walked away from $12 to $15 million a year and ended his time as John Dutton forever. But here's what most people don't understand about why Kevin really left Yellowstone. It wasn't just about money or scheduling conflicts. It was about respect, control, and a man who had spent his entire career refusing to let anyone else dictate his destiny. Kevin Costner had learned some hard lessons during his decades in Hollywood. He had seen what happened when studios tried to control him, when they delayed scripts, changed shooting schedules, and tried to break his spirit. The secret clause in his Yellowstone contract that gave him power over his character. The Instagram video that ended his time on Yellowstone wasn't just an announcement. It was Kevin Costner's declaration of independence. After decades of fighting with studios, directors, and producers, he was finally saying enough is enough. He would rather fail on his own terms than succeed on someone else's. That's the real reason Kevin Costner will never return to Yellowstone. It's not about money, it's not about scheduling, and it's not about ego. It's about a man who has spent his entire career refusing to compromise his vision, even when it costs him everything. Kevin Costner's story is far from over. He's still making movies, still taking risks, and still proving that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from something that's making you miserable, even if everyone else thinks you're crazy. The secret clause in his contract gave him the power to protect his character's dignity, but Kevin Costner's real power has always come from his willingness to bet everything on the stories he believes in. That's what made him a star, that's what won him Academy Awards, and that's what led him to walk away from the biggest TV show in America. So the next time someone asks why Kevin Costner left Yellowstone, remember this. It wasn't about the money he was walking away from. It was about the man he refused to become. A man who would compromise his integrity for a paycheck, no matter how big that paycheck might be. Kevin Costner's journey from building canoes and dreaming of the frontier to becoming one of Hollywood's most respected actors is a story about never giving up on your vision, even when everyone tells you you're wrong. And his decision to leave Yellowstone is just the latest chapter in that story. What do you think about Kevin Costner's decision? Was he right to walk away from millions of dollars to protect his artistic integrity? Or should he have found